important guest on the show in this first opening segment, and he is Senator Mike MacDonald, Michael D. MacDonald. Welcome to the Political Insider.
Good morning, Bill. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Senator MacDonald, I believe, and he can correct me, I think he is the only Republican senator not with any legislative experience. All the other incoming freshman senators, Republicans at least, have experience usually in the state house coming in. But Senator MacDonald came out of nowhere to shock the political world and win the 10th district seat, which is in Macomb County. He represents Sterling Heights, Macomb Township, and a major part of Clinton Township. Is that correct, Senator MacDonald?
Yeah, that is correct. I am the only Republican legislator without any political experience. There are quite a few on the Democrat side.
Right.
That don't have it. And the Clinton Township, that would be northern Clinton Township, so anything north of 16 Mile Road.
Right. Well, you know, that could be a good thing, Senator. We need some people who are fresh blood, new blood in the legislature. That's what the public is saying. And by the way, Senator MacDonald got his committee assignments this week, and he landed some big ones. He's on the Appropriations Committee, the major committee. As I understand it, he's vice chair on the Licensing and Regulatory Affairs Subcommittee. He's a member of the subcommittees on transportation, universities and community colleges, and community health and human services. He also is serving on the Senate Oversight Committee and the Senate Health Policy and Human Services Committees. Is that correct?
That is correct. I'm couldn't be more honored to have gotten the committee assignments that I did.
That's fantastic beginning. Let me just ask you, how did you come to run for the state Senate in the first place? What got you into this?
We talked about it a little bit. I had been doing a doctoral degree in healthcare administration with the goal of becoming the chief executive officer of a hospital. A lot of my classmates were already CEOs of hospitals. I had done my doctoral residencies in Washington, D.C., and that's where we'd all connect and we'd meet and we'd work on collaborative assignments to get through the doctoral program. And a lot of them thought that I might serve the people better as a legislator because of how passionate I was about preventative health care. I was also an exercise scientist and a personal trainer, and my dissertation was on obesity, specifically female obesity. So I've always had this strong passion to actually get something done. And, this is not an offensive thing to being a CEO of a hospital, but your job in that capacity is to make money for the hospital, not necessarily to pass laws or to help people with preventative health care. So they kind of planted the seed with me to become a legislator one day, and this was back in 2009. And I kind of had a good way of working on both sides of the aisle because for me, it was about the greater sense of just getting the public to understand the importance of preventive health care. And over the years, I got involved with political circles, and, everyone kind of knew who I was. The doctoral degree took quite a long time to finish, though. It took 6 years after my master's degree to finish it, so I didn't finish till 2015. So it was at that point I approached a fellow De La Salle alum, Pete Lucido, got to know him very well. He had floated my name out to the Senate Republicans, who then got a chance to meet me. And after that, it was just about getting out, working, knocking doors, and that's kind of how this came to be.
Well, congratulations. You won a victory for an open seat, formerly represented, I believe, for the last 8 years by State Senator Tori Rocca, who is term limited. But for you to win this in what is a very marginal district was quite an accomplishment. Let me just ask you one thing, and that is, I think I'm safe in saying you are probably the only person in the history of Michigan politics and government to serve in the state Senate with a PhD in female obesity. I mean, really, seriously. And will you explain briefly why it is so difficult for women to lose weight? Wasn't that one of the conclusions of your thesis, and how they can overcome that?
Well, I'll give you a quick brief overview on how I got to doing that study. As a personal trainer, the population group I had a difficult time with were actually younger-ish females who had always been or had trouble early on to that point losing weight. I had a hard time motivating them psychologically. So I had decided that the study I wanted to do, which turned into an interpretive phenomenological analysis, was to find women who had been obese their whole life, but then got fit. Because I was more interested in figuring out, well, how did those women come to achieve that, where I had struggled motivating the ones that were seeking me out as a personal trainer. So, it took quite a long time to find these women. I had asked for the help of the Detroit YMCA. There's about 11 to 15 satellite sites, and I had signed a premise recruitment form, worked with their trainers, worked with their directors, even presented in front of their board to find these women. And even after a year, I only found 11 of them, which was the requirement for the Institutional Review Board to do the study. What I'd found in my interviews, which were extensive interviews, anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour-long interviews, is that there was a shared commonality with all the women, how they got fit. And a lot of it is just as much psychological as it is physiological. What they had done was created self-policing mechanisms in their brain that would not allow them not to eat healthy and exercise. The way they were able to do this was there were three components to it. The first one is it took an extreme negative trigger, either a death scare, ridicule beyond regular traumatic experience, something that really pushed them and kickstarted them into some kind of action, whether it be eating healthy or exercising. But then it took an extremely long amount of time of positive motivators, compliments, feeling good about yourself, feeling healthy, and then combining that with an exercise prescription, a regimen, something a personal trainer would help you with, or an exercise physiologist. Those three components, after a prolonged period of time, could range anywhere from years even, created eventually a self-policing mechanism in their brain that would not allow them not to work out or exercise. Part of it was the fear of regressing back to the negative feelings they had. Part of it was just the great experiences of the positive motivators, coupled with the regimen that now is unbreakable. That little police officer in their brain basically makes them adherent to exercise now going forward. And the question is, how do we now incorporate that into preventative care programs? And that's something I'm going to be working with my fellow senators, particularly Dr. Baizan, on something that maybe we can ingratiate into our healthcare systems.
Yeah, John Baizan is also a freshman senator after serving 2 terms in the state house. So at least you got some help there, right?
Yes, Dr. Baizan and I are very much wanting to work together on a lot of these issues, and he has a tremendous amount of healthcare experience. He's also in the Air Force, which, luckily for me, I also became the vice president of the Air Force Association, so I have the utmost respect for Dr. Baizan.
Yeah, I want to talk about the Air Force Association and also your idea for making Michigan the Cape Canaveral of the North. We're going to get into that in a minute, but we're going to take a short break here, and we will be right back with Senator Mike MacDonald of the 10th District in Macomb County. Lots more to talk about.
You're listening to The Political Insider with Bill Ballenger on MTN. Here's Bill.
We are back with Senator Mike MacDonald, a freshman senator, Republican from the 10th District in Macomb County. I was asking him, what is the Air Force Association?
So the Air Force Association, the slogan is the force behind the force. So to compare it to like other lobbying, or I should say advocacy groups for the military, like AUSA, which is the Association of the United States Army, what we're trying to do is advocate for a strong defense and Air Force.
Well, hasn't that led you into your idea about how Michigan could become the Cape Canaveral of the North, or maybe even bigger than that? I don't know. Just tell us about it.
Yes, being in the Air Force Association, or the vice president has, I communicate pretty regularly with our president, who communicates with Washington, D.C. To give you an understanding of the scope of the Air Force Association, we actually have a government think tank called the Mitchell Institute, which is the dean of that is General Deptula, who's a three-star general. And he's the go-to for Congress when it comes to any understanding of aerospace or the Air Force. So this is, obviously I'm lucky to have access to this kind of information. I even get correspondence from the Secretary of the Air Force. And the feeling in what we're trying to get the Secretary of the Air Force and the Air Force to understand is the idea of this aerospace initiatives for Michigan. Michigan has a lot of leverage to get this. And the Pentagon just came out yesterday and said that their number one priority is going to be low Earth orbit satellites. So to give you an understanding of this, there are no shortage of companies that are building these satellites. What there's a shortage of is facilities to launch these satellites. So whatever state were to get this, and there are a few that already have it, there's going to be a lot more throwing their hat in the ring now that this has come out from the Pentagon. It'll be a huge economic boom. Michigan holds leverage on this because Michigan has the most restricted airspace, number one, of any state in the country. Number two, the area that we'd be looking to put the launch facility is north of the 45th parallel. Why that's significant is anything north of the 45th parallel, you can launch it toward the poles, the North Pole.
That's
so
like north of Gaylord, maybe? North of Gaylord, say?
Yeah, well, they're looking kind of toward the Alpena, Oswego area. Sort of that would be sort of where they will be looking to do this. There's a lot of places that have thrown their hat in for this launch port. So I can't say for sure, but it will be north of the 45th parallel. Where this would hopefully be significant to metropolitan Detroit is this will need a command center for this to happen. And, there are plenty of places here in Metro Detroit that would be ideal for this. Selfridge being one of them would be an ideal spot for this. Wherever the command center is going to attract a lot of the aerospace business, because the way this is being looked at from a federal perspective is this is sort of a Midwest launch aerospace initiative, based on this idea of whoever gets to space first, we want America to be the one that gets to space because of the economic opportunity there. And this idea that these satellites are going to be needed in the future. In fact, right now there's already a backlog of 10,000 launches without infrastructure to launch these satellites. And then you throw in the autonomous vehicle portion of it. Michigan has been the auto center, and that's what we want to keep it, the auto center. But now all the companies are coming out and saying they're moving toward autonomous. Well, these cars won't be able to work without satellites because they won't be able to communicate with one another. So if we're able to kind of center this low Earth orbit satellite launching in Michigan, it's very likely that we'll keep the auto right here as well.
Well, let me ask you, what is needed for the Michigan legislature about this? And have you been able to engage your fellow senators in the importance of this project? What about the governor's office?
Yeah, my understanding, and I'm working with a group, and you probably learn a lot more speaking to the president of the Michigan Aerospace Manufacturers Association, but my understanding is that both Republicans and Democrats are very, very bought into this. So this is something that I can reach across the aisle right away and work with the Democrats on making happen for Michigan, obviously because you throw in the auto component to it. The governor is aware of this. That's my understanding. In fact, the law firm Warner, Norcross, and Judd is helping figure out what's needed in terms of the language to get the legislator to help with this. We did get some money for vetting the location for this, but not much is needed, really, from the legislator because this is a lot of private industry investment. My understanding, talking to the MAMA group, is that there's already $800 million worth of private investment that is committed to this.
Well, if this gets off the ground, are there jobs in this for the state of Michigan?
Yeah, my understanding is about 1,200. and these are also higher paying jobs, the aerospace industry, and then and it would. My thought too, when you throw education into it, and I've met with a lot of the Macomb intermediate school districts, is there's a big push for cybersecurity and for aerospace, and there's a big push in my own understanding of when I was trying to get people to understand the importance of skilled trades. And now you start talking about Michigan being the aerospace center of the country, you're going to have a lot of kids and a lot of universities, and they're going to want to be here, particularly in Metro Detroit. If we're able to get this command center within that vicinity, that's where a lot of the kids aren't going to want to leave here.
Okay, you've now got your committee assignments, and you're got to look at a whole bunch of other issues that transcend the 10th Senate District, like auto insurance rate reform, so forth and so on. How are you looking at the challenge ahead for you and what you want to concentrate on in the Senate?
Well, we know it's a challenge, and but we also know that Michigan is now ranked 50 in roads, and we have the highest auto insurance rates. So it's completely understandable that that would become the number one priority for the Senate. I'm totally on board with my caucus, and I like to work with them and make sure that we get this figured out. There's some antiquated, in terms of roads in a district like mine, obviously there's some antiquated variables to that. Obviously looking at areas with higher traffic, my area in particular, I have Mound Road and I've got Hall Road. Certainly we need definite help in that area. In terms of education and career readiness, I think that the focus on skilled trades is going to be critical moving forward. I'll give you a specific example of something involving cybersecurity. There are jobs out there right now that are paying almost $200,000 a year, and there are no kids that they can find qualified to do the work. And we're seeing that all across the board, so that's definitely going to be a big priority of mine.
Yeah, let me just close by asking you about your dog. Don't you have a dog named, what's the name of that dog, Gizmo?
Yep, Gizmo. It's our little rescue Lhasa Apso.
Well, did you know that there is another legislator, Representative Alex Garza of Taylor, who has a dog named Gizmo?
I did not know that.
It's a Pomeranian, and all you need to do, I think, to get a caucus going in Lansing is find, maybe one or two more that have dogs named Gizmo, and you can have a Gizmo caucus.
That's going to be that. You know what? The minute I get back to Lansing, I'm going to reach out to him, and we're going to. That's a good. Thank you for that. That's a great idea.
Okay. Listen,
my wife would like it. She'd love it.
I want to thank Senator Mike MacDonald for a tremendous conversation about his background and his idea about making Michigan the Cape Canaveral of the North, and about his challenges in the state Senate. He's got an incredible opportunity. Thank you very much, Senator Mike MacDonald.
Well, thank you, Bill. As this moves along, I'll keep you posted on everything.
Please do.